This week on Notorious Scoundrels podcast.
So it's basically suppressive through the back door.
Welcome to the Notorious Scoundrels podcast.
Hello and welcome to the Notorious Scoundrels podcast, where we're going to talk about Star Wars Legion and some tactics. And today we're going to talk some more games played. We're going to talk about snipers, and more specifically sniper strike teams. And then this time we promise we're also going to get to Bossk and Sabine's command cards that were spoiled on the live stream. So my name is Kyle, and I'm joined by my friends Mike and David. How are you guys doing?
Hey, doing pretty good.
Doing great, man. Ready to talk about this sort of stuff.
It would be unfortunate if you weren't.
Yeah, I know, but let's figure out how to break this strike team meta. But that's not what we're doing at first, I don't think. We're going to talk about some housekeeping issues, right?
Yep. So Invader League signups started yesterday. It's almost full already. So if you
I believe the last update was like maybe 20 or 30 minutes ago was LJ had expanded it and put 3 more US groups in.
Yep. So
because there are 100 people signed up, which is amazing.
Yeah, it's kind of amazing. The good thing about Invader League is since this is a tournament on Tabletop Simulator. So since it's online, there's essentially, there's a size limit as a practical matter of running a tournament, but it's not like we have, tables or space limitations or terrain limitations. So if you sign up, there's a good chance. I don't know if he'll expand the size again, but certainly the limitations on that are not the same as they would be like in a convention space. So if you want to play, go sign up.
Yeah, the other thing with that is that in an online thing, there's also inevitably drops in the round robin, and I think that they just replace people on the wait list.
They do. Yep. Yeah, that actually happened to me. I signed up late for Invader League Season 2, and I ended up getting a spot actually before the season started. So yeah, sign up.
Invader 2 was really cool. I had a great experience with Invader 2, and I got knocked out in the first round, but it was really neat. And of course, those of you who are following Invader know that I run the Yavin-based Twitch channel, and that is also like a great part of it too. And we have plans to cast more and more games, and we're going to try to, get some good ones. We've got like the overlay will be the same for Wipe for Yavin base, but the sponsors have expanded. There's a lot of prizes now. I think there's like $800 in prizes between the top 8 finishers. So there's a lot of really cool things that are going to be added to it. So if you're listening to the sound of our voices and you haven't signed up, you should go to invaderleague.com. We'll just go ahead and just full on plug it. So, still sign up. There's still places you can get to. I know people are going to have to drop. So, just go sign up.
Yeah, it's really fun. It's good for me because I got 2 young kids, and like a lot of my playtime is limited until after they go to bed. So it's an easy way for me to get practice in. Nothing's as fun as the real table, but I had a great experience last time, and I'm planning on doing it again. So so that is the first housekeeping bit. You guys got anything else on Invader League?
If you don't sign up, just come hang out in Twitch chat, man. Super fun, especially because the players that are playing don't get to see what you're saying, so you get to kind of like be kind of poke fun and stuff, and then they get to go back and watch it afterwards. It's fun.
Good natured.
Yes, absolutely. But it's just a good community hanging out in chat.
Yep. For sure. All right, so the second is just we've had this reminder the last couple episodes, but the hour is nigh. Your LCQ AdeptiCon lists are due tomorrow. Well, actually, by the time you hear this podcast, it will be tonight at midnight. So that is the 19th. So if you haven't gone in there and submitted your list, get in there and submit your list. It's in TTO. The links have been floating around the various AdeptiCon locations, Facebook, Discord, etc. So make sure you get your list in and paint your dudes.
Yep, paint your dudes.
Yep.
I did some of that today, actually. I was painting my Pathfinders. They're almost done. Soon, my preciouses. we'll be ripping up sniper strike teams with deadly precision, and we'll be doing it fully painted.
Are you? Well, we can talk about this in the next segment, but
Yes.
So yeah, I've been also doing some painting. I've been doing some airbrush shortcuts, so hopefully they don't look terrible. We'll see.
Yeah. So, quick aside, where did you get your airbrush, and how much do you like it?
I love it. It's actually a couple of years ago now, so I don't remember. It was online somewhere. My wife actually got it for me as a birthday present. It was the coolest birthday present ever. So I would if you're, this is a slight painting aside, but this is actually not the one that I use, but I would personally recommend, like, if you want to get into airbrushing, you go out and get a Patriot Badger. That's what it's called. That's the easiest one to use, and also the easiest one to clean, which is important. There's a million, like, how to get into airbrushing things out there, but if you're just getting into the hobby, you probably want to start with paintbrushes. But if you're to the point where you're like looking to experiment with some quick painting techniques and also do some fancier like priming and stuff like that, I'll ever since I got that airbrush, like, I can't go back. It's amazing. So I will plug the airbrush generally. The whole setup, if you want like a decent one, probably cost you about $150 to $200.
No, that's actually not nearly as bad as I thought it would be.
No, it's with the compressor and the brush itself. Often, like, Michaels will sell them. You can get like those 20% off coupons pretty frequently.
Oh yeah,
you can find them online on sale too. I would personally not suggest you. Part of the reason it's like $200 and not, because you can get an airbrush for less than $100, and not like $100 is you do want an actual airbrush compressor. People will tell you that you can use like a tool compressor, but it's not true. So you do want an actual airbrush compressor. But we could talk forever about painting, or at least I could. So yeah,
that's not what we're here to do.
Well, we certainly could.
I'm gonna have to go find another podcast.
Well, this is a hobby too, and obviously we're talking about painting requirements for AdeptiCon. So yep. I love painting. I just endless time. I could spend endless time painting stuff.
You could spend endless amounts of time.
Yes,
in fact.
Yep. All right. So you want to launch? Should we launch into games played?
Yeah, let's talk about what games were played this week and any lessons we gleaned from these games. You played online with Zach Berry from Jetta Journal.
Yep. His so he's Zach Berry on the Discord. He's also Grand Admiral Thrawn, but he writes that Jetta Journal blog, which is new-ish. Some pretty good articles up there on rebel tactics and stuff. But yeah, we played on Saturday on TTS. He was running Jin Luke, which was good because I needed some practice against Jin. Some more practice.
I'm curious about that too. I've ran it and it wasn't as successful as I thought I would be with it. But how did it go?
So I ended up winning. We did play Recover. It was in the third slot, so he could force it, and I probably would have actually even done what you did last weekend, Mike, which is just not veto it, because I wanted to practice specifically against that scenario.
Yeah.
So I was actually happy for that to be the situation. I also got advanced positions, which I actually think you should probably be cutting if you run Jin Luke, for the reasons which I will get into. And actually, it was hostile environment, I think, was the condition. So, and I was running my, the list I've talked about already, Wonder Twins, which is Luke Leia with 4Z6 as a fleet, 2 snipers, and Pathfinders with POW.
So you're not playing the Wookiees, you're playing the Pathfinders right now.
Well, at the moment, that's what I'm practicing, just because I'm so comfortable with the Wookiees. I don't feel like I need to. I need to see if these Pathfinders are. I haven't decided yet what I'm taking for Adepticon. If that's the ultimate question you're asking.
Yes, that is the ultimate question I'm asking.
I am currently planning on painting both of them and putting both of them in the car. So I still have not decided yet, but I've definitely been enjoying the Pathfinders.
So if I hide your Wookiees on the way, you won't have a choice. That's what you're saying.
Well, let me finish
A
talking about this.
typical Imperial scooping the Wookiees up and hauling them away for cheap labor, or for slave labor. God.
Yeah, let me finish this recap, and then I'll ask you what you think I should play. So we did recover. He dropped Jin on the box. I deployed my other stuff, and I dropped Luke and used the Scout 1 move from advanced positions to get a little bit closer to Jin. I have been running him on recon with recon intel, but I had switched to stims just because I missed it too much, and you can actually, in a pinch, you can get the same effect with no time for sorrows. So anyway, he played Rebellious and ran away with the box. One movement away, he ended up just a little bit past range 2 of Luke, which was actually to my benefit, because then I was able to like hold Luke till near the end of the round and activate him, and then I just double moved and pulled Jin back into melee with Luke. So this is the force push slingshot that we talked about when we first talked about Jin and Pathfinders. And then second turn I played Son of Skywalker, recovered, force pushed her again closer to my lines into a more advantageous position, and then moved and charged and killed her. So it ended up basically turning the box grab situation on its head, and I had 3 boxes and Jin was dead. So it kind of snowballed from there because I just kind of, pulled that back and then turtled up.
Yeah, I mean, you killed her second hero on turn 2, or his second hero on turn 2. I mean, that's massive.
Yeah. So my takeaway there was, like, if you're doing a Jin box grab, and obviously I think he realized this immediately as it happened, but if you're doing like a Jin box grab, make sure that you are exactly range 2 away from the unit that is threatening you, in this case Luke, so that you can get that second move when they activate. Because if they jump into your range 2, you're not going to be able to take that move. They have to actually start at range 2 of Jin. So even if it means like moving slightly less far, away from your opponent's lines, you want to make sure that you can trigger that second move from Rebellious. So I think actually if he had done that, it would have been a box chase in reverse, and that would have been pretty tough. I had some backup plans as far as like going after his secondary boxes like we talked about last week, but it ultimately ended up not being necessary.
I have a question.
Yep.
So, okay, let's say both players bring infiltrate and you're blue. If you know that the box grab is like a tactic on the table, do you necessarily feel forced to infiltrate first to deny his infiltrate?
So if you're playing recover,
yeah, if you're playing recover and both parties have infiltrate units, whatever they are, Pathfinders, Jin, whatever.
I think the answer to that is yes if you have Jin, and no if you don't.
Yeah, I think that's the short answer. I don't think you try it with Pathfinders.
I think that there's a couple important factors there. The first is that if you both have infiltrating Jins, it's somewhat likely one of you is not playing Luke. Clearly,
Yes.
whoever that is probably has an advantage, or whoever does have Luke rather has an advantage. But the Pathfinders are they're just going to get shredded. They don't have Rebellious, so they don't get that second move on the first turn. And the other thing is that like your opponent's Pathfinders are just going to be set up to murk you still.
The one thing you can do, like suppose you have Pathfinders and your opponent has Jin, and you actually won the bid and your blue player, you probably don't want to drop them in that middle box and try and run off with it. If depending on terrain, obviously, like if there's a situation where you can safely jump behind some line of sight blockage or something, and you're not going to get run down by Jin with Rebellious, then maybe you can try that. But you can deploy them a little bit further up just to hedge out your opponent dropping Jin on that box. because they got to deploy range 3 away from your units, which includes your pathfinders if you advance deploy them. So
Okay, so you like maybe just try to zone it off and not like full blown commit to the dropping adjacent to the center. You just drop in some hard cover at an intermediate point and then just prevent it.
right.
Yeah, I think you also probably want to try and cover your quote unquote safe boxes with wherever you place them as well, if you can.
Right.
Yeah, so that brings up an interesting tactical point, which we talked a little bit about in the Pathfinder episode. But just like if both of you have infiltrate units and you're the first person to do a drop, you may actually want to, typically we've been saying like on non-recover scenarios, you want to hold your infiltrate unit until late, until you have sort of an idea of where your opponent is putting their guys, and especially if you can maybe sneak like a sniper range 4 shot in there. But if your opponent also has infiltrate units, the first person to put an infiltrate unit somewhere in the middle of the table is going to hedge out like a large area of the table. So this is actually a concept also from 40K with those that are familiar with Space Marine Scouts, which can do something very similar. And generally speaking, like those are at least in 40K, since everything deep strikes, those are like the first units that you drop so that you can, hedge out the portion of the board that you want. Basically, you're claiming a portion of the table for your infiltrate unit. Obviously, you want to put them in a relatively safe spot so they don't get shot. But like if you both have pathfinders and you don't want your opponent dropping their pathfinders in a specific spot, drop yours there first. So obviously there's disadvantages to that too. You're showing your hand by putting your pathfinders down, but you're also hedging out the board. So you just got to decide what's more important.
Yeah, I mean it's a balance thing, right? You got to figure out which is the riskier play and not take that road.
Yep.
I mean, generally tossing the pathfinders down to zone stuff out is going to be pretty safe because they'll probably be about halfway between the deployment zones.
Mm-hmm.
So you can always kind of like back up if you need to.
Yep. And they have good range. So I've actually the last 2 games that I've played with Pathfinders, I have not lost a single Pathfinder mini, which I feel like should be some kind of achievement.
Actually, yeah, because Danger Sense is, while good, is not that good.
Yeah.
It's pretty good.
It is good, but there are also a couple games. I feel like them and Fleet Troopers get focused a lot. Like there are a couple games where I've actually survived with all my Fleet Troopers, and I feel like that should be like a Steam achievement or something.
Well, there's good reason, right? Because those are the units that decline the most in power per wound.
Right. But anyway, in the last 2 games I've played them pretty conservatively. Like I've still advanced deployed them, but in a spot that was, like on a flank or something, not directly engageable by my opponent, just like at a good angle to an important spot of the board. And it's been pretty helpful.
I feel like this is actually like one of the first units that rebels have to play a little bit more like Boba Fett to some degree. Like they just kind of want to be skirting around the flanks at like range 3, bobbing out of range 4 and 3 instead of 2 and 3. But I don't know. There's a lot of similarities now that I've seen them on the table.
Oh, I completely agree. I had to, maybe we can, if you're done talking about your game, Kyle, I mean, we can segue into that. But in my game, I had to try to kite a unit of officer fleets with my pathfinders to avoid just getting blown the hell away. And it was exactly what I was doing, was what you mentioned, Mike, which was, shooting at 3, ducking into 4. Then they have to like try to double move to get a hold of me, and of course that makes them vulnerable. So it was kind of like that same sort of thing where you're just playing the range game and trying to avoid getting blown up and leveraging your range 4 over a short range unit and not dying to their short range firepower.
Yeah, I mean, I think that was part of my takeaway also, because obviously I was able to put myself in an early defensive situation, and there was no pressure to move my pathfinders up. I took quite a few range 4 shots, sort of as he was moving up. Zach did do a pretty good job of, to like in a box chase situation, pressuring one of my other boxes, and trying to salvage the situation. But anytime you're like down an activation and you're forced into attacking after that, it's tough. So
definitely.
So yeah, credit to Zach, and I think next time he will make sure that if he tries the Jin box grab again, to leave her at range 2 of the threatening unit. That's all I got for that's the only game I managed this week.
All right. Well, I can talk about the 2 games I played this weekend. I played against Han Shui Double Rotary. That was my first game. I'm playing pretty much your exact list, except that I think I dropped Esteemed Leader for a bid rather than take a no bid. I don't know what you ended up going with for a bid, or if you decided to go with no bid at all.
No, I think we have the exact same list at this point.
Oh yeah, okay. Well, there you go.
I love that you dropped it. I think Esteemed Leader is wicked overrated.
Yeah, I'm starting to come to that conclusion as well. Not that Esteemed is bad necessarily, but the more I play, the more I realize just how precious my trooper lives actually are.
Yep.
And you can't really, in a situation where you're taking 5 core with just heavy weapons, you can't really afford to waste a single wound.
No.
On keeping Leia alive.
Especially when, like, the units that you're essentially guardian off of with a Steam Leader, they're still at 100% capacity and efficiency until their wounds tick over to 0.
You're referring to like the Z6 or
no, like for instance, Leia is just as good on 1 wound as she is on 6. She dies to 1 shot, but she can still do literally all the same things. If you had esteemed those 5 wounds off onto other squads, they would not have the same functionality.
Oh yeah, that's a point well taken. There's a situation in the second game which exactly describes what you're referring to, and I'll get to that in just a moment. But in this first game, I was reminded just of just how strong rotaries actually are. But also the Pathfinder's got a good chance to show off what they can do against Danger Sense. So it was advanced positions, recover. I managed to get recover, but instead of dropping my Pathfinders on the center, I decided to be a little bit more conservative, just because the center box was up elevation, and that kind of ruined everything. Plus, it was minefields. So I thought to myself, well, this is really silly if I go get my Pathfinders killed by a mine. This doesn't seem very smart. So basically I sent Luke to get the middle box, and the Pathfinders didn't really do a whole lot of infiltrating. No strike teams to speak of. So they were kind of just a heavy defensive unit. I think, or Kyle, I think you referred to them as the unit embodiment of the Z6 at one point, just because they have so many white dice at range 3. And they surge, which is nice, but they're somewhere between a Z6 and a fleet in that regard. So he's playing Han Shui. He played an interesting play with Reckless Diversion, but he left his token on Shui a little too long, and Shui just ate a bunch of wounds. And I had a moment there also where Luke had to go early because I improv'd once and then immediately drew him, which sucks. Got to shuffle better, I guess. So I had to go up there with Luke. There was a Rebel Trooper unit next to Chewbacca on top of the center building. And in hindsight, this was incorrect, although I think I was just being greedy. There was room enough for Luke to double move, touch the box, and then yank this Rebel Trooper unit into contact with him. Or sorry, not a double move. He was gonna jump up there and grab the box, but Chewie was there, and I didn't want either Chewie to charge me or get killed by other units that hadn't gone yet. So I jumped up, force pushed his guys into melee with me, and then stood by so that if Chewie will spend his activation box grabbing me and not charging me. And it was a situation where I had the box and 5 Rebel Troopers surrounding Luke, so Luke was completely bubbled. So no chance to be in melee with Luke, no chance for Luke to get shot. It was like the dream scenario for that. And the standby let me sort of delay Luke's attack so that I'd be safe for at least another activation from being shot. And of course, off the standby, Chewie goes and grabs the box. On the standby, I roll 6 hits. The entire enemy squad dies. Next turn, Son of Skywalker blow up Chewbacca. Like, it just was kind of elementary after that. But I gotta say, I was reminded of the power of the rotary cannon. I had a rotary roll 5 crits into my Pathfinders in heavy cover, and thankfully the paths had danger sense fully charged, and they only lost 2 models, which was kind of nice. You're rolling 8 dice at that point, and to dig 3 saves out of 8 dice is, well, it's a little bit above average, right? Because not 3 out of 9 would be dead average.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's close enough that it's probably a wash.
Yeah, that's a very reasonable outcome in that scenario.
Yeah, so I was able to dig some saves there, and it felt really good just to get those saves out and to show the Pathfinders could just resist a shot like that. But I gotta say, like, once the Pathfinders lose their friends, I mean, Pow's kind of cool, but he's only got 2 dice. He can't really break cover anymore unless he crits. And I'm trying to figure out, how do I use Pow once he's on his own? I think that's another challenge. That's just kind of like a worst case scenario. Like, generally speaking, you don't want your Pathfinders to die ever if you can avoid it, but sometimes you just can't because of the way the game falls out. And I need to keep them here because they're defending against this Z6 unit, but here's this flanking rotary that's just kicking my ass. And but I think they handled it pretty well, all things considered. I did lose a full squad of rebel troopers to a second rotary, which was kind of miserable. That didn't feel very good. So yeah, just always be in cover. Just never like run out of cover in front of a rotary cannon if you're rebels. It's just bad. Don't do that.
Well, in front of anything, really.
Well, yeah, I mean in front of anything, but especially not a rotary.
Yeah, they'll just mulch you.
Yeah, that's dream for the rotary right there. But eventually Chewie died. I got the 3rd box. Eventually we overcame opposition and managed to win the game. Leia decided to come out swinging and kill the rebel trooper squad by herself over 2 activations, just rolling 3 hits. I gotta say, man, like, natty hits with Leia are just the stupidest thing ever. It's like, oh, move, shoot, oh, lose 3 guys. Like, wow.
I mean, her gun's pretty good. I walk up and like take a triple weight die shot with General Veers, and I feel like sometimes that's too good. I can't imagine what it would feel like rolling 3 black dice as opposed to 1.
Yeah, 3 black dice with surge crit, sharp 2. Yeah. Leia the Slaya. That's her nickname at the store now. So that game, I mean, it was still pretty close because I think I had a single fleet trooper with a box that would have died to the rotary that didn't get killed by Luke, the second rotary that didn't get killed by Luke. But we managed to game initiative to the point where I was able to run to safety and then just hold on to all 3 till the end. So second game was against Han Leia Airspeeder. I think my opponent was kind of just taking something fun, but it was still triple snipers, and I managed to get Disarray on intercept, it was Disarray KP, not intercept. So this is like perfect, right? I can infiltrate with my paths. I can kill off strike teams with near abandon, even through a reckless diversion, because you can just go to places where you can't shoot Han. You just don't have the range. And I think by turn 2, all of his strike teams had been eliminated, and I had both of mine still, which kind of just wrapped things up. Plus, it was against an airspeeder, so that was a lot of his activation padding. But that game, Luke decided not to save, essentially. He grabbed Han on turn 3, I think, in melee, and Leia joined in the melee, and they actually brawled Luke down over successive turns, just because I was busy holding on to Son of Skywalker for like the crucial moment. I was just a little bit too conservative, and it was a little bit silly. Luke rolled 8 saves that game and failed 6 of them. Like 8 red dice were rolled and he failed 6 out of 8, even with deflect active.
That's the best kind of Luke Skywalker.
I know, that's your favorite kind, the Luke that can't save.
Yep. Totally.
Because so much of Luke's strength is his saves.
Yeah.
So that was kind of neat. Leia with the martial arts, man. So, but I think I was going to mention earlier, I had a point where Leia was going to make like a pretty heroic play. There was an officer fleet that was starting to just murder my Pathfinders on one of my KP, and Leia had already played both of her command cards, and so in a stroke of greed, she was like on 2 wounds, I think, at that point because she'd been targeted by some other units in the game. At that point, she was already taking wounds, and so I was like, okay, well, I've played both of her command cards. I played No Time for Sorrows, and I played Bombard now. I'm just gonna send her into this unit of fleets and try to trade up, or sorry, not trade up, but trade down. Officer fleets are 86 and Leia's 100 with improv, and I was kind of okay with losing improv at that point because I was pretty far ahead, and she just ran in there and got killed, but she did manage to take some fleets with her and weaken them enough so that they couldn't actually kill my Pathfinders in time. And then those remaining fleets got wiped out by snipers. So that was a pretty fun conclusion there. But it was a willingness to sort of sacrifice your commander once their command cards have been played. Then you can be aggressive and maybe be a little bit greedy. It was the kind of player where it was like, I'm going to run forward, shoot, and then bombard and just do all the damage in one turn and just gain a bunch of tempo that way. So, and yeah, that's a good thing. You can shoot and bombard in the same turn if some new players are listening and don't know that you can do that. That's one of the strongest ways to use Leia on her bombard turn if you get COP'd out of it or delay it on purpose because it's just not a good time. It was an interesting game, but the last point I'll just make, and this is not news, the airspeeder is still terrible. Like, it shot a few times, it dealt some wounds, but it just couldn't penetrate cover.
Nah,
Too many surges.
It needs sharpshooter too, man.
It needs sharpshooter or it needs surge crit. It needs something to get its offense.
Would be fine too.
Yeah, heck, even surge hit would be fine. It doesn't really need surge crit. It's got impact 3. So surge hit would be delicious. You know, that way you could actually murder things in cover.
Yep.
It'd be terrifying in Rebel 1 Rebel. It's immune to melee, which is also really cool.
Mm-hmm.
So it would just be so much better if it had surge to hit. And then you just pay points for the buzzer as well. That would actually make the buzzer half decent too. Because you could get a 4-hit rollout much more easily on the buzzer and not have to waste your aiming the buzzer.
Yeah, it would definitely help. I think it would still be probably too expensive to be like, that's the thing, and I guess we'll see where the weapon costs on this is a total tangent, on the X-34 come out, but like, even if it's like an offensive powerhouse, if you're spending, you know, what's the airspeeder now, 175, you throw the buzzer on there, 195, even with like surge to hit, if you're spending almost 200 points on something with you know, that still like dies to a stiff breeze, it almost doesn't matter how you know, how good that offense is. But
yeah, I mean, 175, right? That's 2 rotary RTs.
Right.
That's so many points.
Yeah, that's a lot of points. There's a lot of things that you could get for that many points.
It's Luke.
That's Luke with Force Push and Jedi Mind Trick.
Yep. Yeah. So anyway, that was a total tangent, but
old wounds.
Yep.
Is what that is. So yeah, those are the games I played, and the lessons learned is that you can delay Luke's melee attack with a standby because you're engaged, and you won't get it shot off of you, as a way to protect him from being shot by other units in the turn if he has to go early. It's just kind of a neat little thing, and it's most convenient if he's got a unit near him that hasn't activated, they can pull in to defend himself with. And then once something near him that he can see does anything near that melee, then he can swing and do his attack at a safer time.
Yep. Don't forget, you can also, you know, like if the unit that you pull in hasn't gone yet, and suppose they use their activation to withdraw, you can use a standby to take a move action, and it is a move action, so you can also take a charge attack after that. So
yep, they're basically forced to punch you at that point,
right.
Which is kind of nice.
Yeah, which still can hurt if you don't have a dodge token.
Yeah, definitely.
Especially against stormtroopers who surge. So don't underestimate the punching. In one of my early games, I underestimated the punching power of stormtroopers, and they literally punched Luke to death.
I mean, they're better at melee than they are with their guns. Like, just I think even with the DLT, like, they're just better.
Yeah, those black dice with surge and melee. And they're usually getting an aim token, so they're usually re-rolling 3 of them. You know, precise is not just not just for ranged attacks.
Oh yeah, and speaking of countering withdraw, No Time for Sorrows is the exact same speed as a withdraw. So if you have that in your hand and Leia's near you, feel free to No Time for Sorrows right back into melee with them and murder them. Seems good.
Yep. Yeah, you can't use it to actually take a withdrawal action, but you can definitely use it to, if you're not engaged, to catch a unit that just withdrew.
Yep.
Mike, did you play any games this week that you want to talk about?
The only game I played involved a Rebel Trooper unit that had four Z6s in it. So.
Oh, you played Deep Jungle?
No, we were playing Gathering Legions actually.
Oh.
Okay.
And my Triple Inquisitor list was facing off against AJST's Baze Chirrut list, which had a heroic Rebel Trooper squad called the Temple Guardians, and so I don't think this is how this actually works, but we played it this way just because I think that was the idea. So he upgraded his Rebel Trooper squad so that it costs like 250 points. It was an 8-man unit with 4 Z6s in it, and he gave the Z6s suppressive. We played it that the suppressive was cumulative. I don't think that's actually how that works.
It's not.
Yeah. I mean, like that was clearly his intent. But so every time it shot, it laid down 5 suppression tokens. I manhandled it with a 48 point snow trooper unit. Just like they steadied, shot it, and then walked into melee, and then he withdrew the next turn, and then I steadied, shot it, and walked into melee. It was so
steady so good.
It's very good. So anyways, that's the game I played.
Okay.
So it's not exactly.
Sounds fun.
It was a wicked fun.
So I want to, before we hit snipers, I want to revisit our earlier question, because David, I'm sure you're having the same struggle. What should we play for AdeptiCon?
Oh man, I am really digging the Pathfinders. Mainly just because there's 2 large reasons that I have for playing Paths over Wookiees. Number 1 is durability.
That's interesting because I find Wookiees still to be much more durable.
Really?
Yeah, it's a little weird. It's a little weird, right? They're durable in different ways. So Pathfinders are, they resist ranged fire, and they especially resist like chip shots. That's their best scenario is when they're rolling a full danger sense against like the 1 crit that managed to get through cover. Wookiees can't say the same. They're trying to leverage their health in that regard. But again, like that's just superior value if they chip a wound off a Wookiee from like a crappy little squad that barely has anyone left. The second big reason is there's actually 3 reasons I think about it. Second big reason is flexibility. Like just the ability to shoot out to range 4 is so nice, and their damage at range 3 is pretty good, and range is kind of king still to me, even on tables that are, tables are, I think there's a trend to more heavily line of sight block tables, and so this may change. Just to vary the game, because obviously we've known this since we started playing competitive Legion. The more open the board is, the more heavily it favors ranged weapons, and especially ATST. So there's the ability to do damage at range, and then there's the third idea, which is if I'm investing points in a unit, I want to make sure it's doing something to help me win the attrition war. And Wookiees are not like directly helping me do that, at least in the first 2-3 rounds. They're definitely helping me win the game, but I have to create a situation where they will cause a win or contribute to a win. I don't necessarily have to engineer that so much with the Pathfinders, and if I do have the opportunity to engineer that, it's like right at my fingertips. I'm not waiting for my opponent to make a mistake or my opponent to suffer enough wounds for my Wookiees to now it's time for you guys to go in there. like the paths are pretty much always going to be useful from the start of the game to the end of the game, and the Wookiees not so much, especially against Empire. I think that's kind of my big problem with them is, and again, I think it's just the unit doesn't really work with me, and what I see is valuable. But then again, some people are really into the Wookiees, and I love the models, and I wish I could use them more, but I just haven't been able to make them work like I'm making the Pathfinders work now, and I'm content with the Pathfinders, I think, at this point. I don't know if that helps you make a decision because you're really good at Wookiees. I
Yeah,
have the cop out, which is like I suck at Wookiees. I'll take these instead. Thanks.
I do love my Wookiees. I don't know. I'm probably leaning like 60-40 Pathfinders, but I'm not sold yet. I find the Wookiees to be tougher. Obviously, they're a better linebacker unit. So like if something like Luke, which I anticipate we're going to see a lot of, gets into your lines, you can use the Wookiees to deal with him instead of having to divert your own Luke. Against Rebel opponents, they're obviously great in melee. Against Empire, that Pierce is great at range. They will do more damage once you get them to range 2 than Pathfinders will. They're just a beefier unit in general. But I have really been enjoying Pathfinders for all the reasons you stated. Range 4 firepower. They have very solid dice at range 3. You can drop them wherever you want them, even if it's not like a splashy play to grab an objective or take a sniper team out. You can still forward deploy them in a useful spot where they're also safe, which is great. So I don't know. I think I'm probably leaning 60-40 Pathfinders, but I really do love my Wookiees. So it's. I think I was. I'm gonna paint both of them, and I'm gonna bring both of them, and I'm probably not gonna know which one I'm gonna pick until Saturday morning. So
I'm only playing games with the Pathfinders at this point, so it's pretty much sealed for me. It's what I've played recently and what I'm learning how to do. And I used to be really down on them, and I think I've found what I have to know to make them work. They are not an easy unit to use, and neither are the Wookiees, but I think that's the point. I just feel like if I'm paying 114 points, I better get some value out of that unit, or else I should have just taken a 6th core trooper and another strike team, because those are pretty immediately useful.
Mike, as an Empire player, and as more specifically, at least currently, a Veers Bubble player, which would you rather not face between the two?
Please, for the love of God, put those Wookiees on the table, because I will destroy them every time.
Okay.
The Pathfinders scared the living bejesus out of me, frankly. They're so one of the things about Empire generally is, outside of sniper fire, we've got a pretty big advantage on you guys when it comes to range. I think Pathfinders has the ability to turn that on its head a little bit. 2 red dice at range 4 is enough for some chip shots outside of cover, but like a full Pathfinder squad at range 4 can actually do some damage if they like aim and stuff. Especially if they got Biston. Whereas the Wookiees, I just they're dead by the time I'm done with playing coordinated fire. It's so easy to just coordinated fire. I just have to have 2 units shoot at your Wookiees, and there's 2 to 3 Wookiees dead. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, you definitely Wookiees definitely require, at least the way I play them. Generally, I hold them in reserve until at least turn 3.
Yeah.
Just so that literally just straight up out of line of sight. And then I wait for stuff to come to them, or I use force push to pull stuff around corners so that they can shoot it. And maybe that's another reason not to use them, is that they're sort of like Vader. They're a turn 4 to 6 high impact unit, right?
Yeah.
So
right.
If you're not getting there, then I don't know. Maybe that's another reason to use Pathfinders, because Pathfinders are very, very clearly a early turn order stacked impact.
Yeah, I think, generally speaking, this is kind of the play style I like to play, but I'm all about that early damage, right? You want to snowball the game as quickly as possible. in a tournament setting, clearly. So the more damage you're doing, the earlier you're doing it is, if all of your units aren't effective on turn 1 or 2, I don't know. That's that doesn't feel worth it.
I get you. Yep, I get you guys. All right, you wanna talk snipers and then maybe transition into Bossk and Sabine real quick?
Yeah, we got some. I think we can hit both if we go quick. Yeah.
All right. So snipers, sniper strike teams are very popular, as they
Newsflash
should be. We this the real hard hitting analysis here, folks. You heard it here first. Snipers are good.
More than 11.
Yeah. So there's this stat I finally got, by the way, part 2 of the LVO data analysis article out. So if you haven't read that, check it out at swlegionodds.com. My goal was to get it out before Winds of Winter was released, so I think I'm good. Anyway, so one of the nuggets from doing that was that out of the 62 lists at LVO, 42 of them had sniper strike teams. And those lists went, so this is win-loss. They had 94 wins and 77 losses.
Okay.
So that's basically pretty decent. Lists without sniper strike teams were 31 and 48.
Ugh.
So that would be the inverse of that. I also isolated, there were 54 matches, so that's a pretty decent size, sample size, where one player had sniper strike teams and one player did not have sniper strike teams. And in those instances, the player with sniper strike teams went 36 and 18, so 2-1 essentially. Now I don't want to make any causal conclusions from that, but I think the stat, you can draw whatever conclusions you want. But I've tried lists without sniper strike teams in them, and I don't know whether it doesn't fit my play style or what, but they're just not as good, at least for me.
You miss them. Them.
Totally. I miss them more than, so I've talked on past episodes about that. Han, Chewie, sorry about the barbecue list. They're the thing. I miss them more than Luke in that list. I know that's seriously
blasphemy.
I know, right?
Yeah,
but,
blasphemy.
I think I miss the snipers more than I miss Luke when I'm running that list.
I believe that.
Yeah.
I haven't played a list without a sniper strike team until yesterday when I played Jin Saboteurs, and I definitely missed them then. I was like, oh man, where's my piercing shots?
Yeah, they're good for so many reasons, right? They're cheap, so they're a good way to pad your activation count.
I think that's their main advantage.
Well,
yes.
I don't know that it's definitely a significant advantage.
They pad your activation count, and they can go first at long range to save your shorter range stuff for later in the round. That's the double whammy, I think.
Right. So that's part 2 of activation count, right? Right now, besides core units and characters, the most popular thing to run, and probably the most effective thing to run, are special forces units. In our case, for Rebels, we've talked a lot about Wookiees and Pathfinders. Obviously, for Empire players, you got IRG, and hopefully at some point, in the Lux Millennia, Death Troopers. So they essentially if you pull a special forces token early in the round and you don't want those Wookiees to go yet, then you can just use that on a sniper team. So they essentially insulate, your hard hitting special forces unit, the one that you have, from a bad early pull of a token. And they tend to be generally speaking, timing neutral. We've talked, I think, before about activation order and when you want to activate things. It's always helpful to have things where you basically don't care when they activate. And I think sniper strike teams fall into that category for the most part. Unless they're in immediate danger from something. But
one caveat is if your opponent outnumbers you and is making a deliberate attempt to kill your strike teams, that's when going first matters.
Oh, right. For sure.
Yeah, and there definitely are situations if you're engaged in a sniper war, with a player that has more long range shooting, then you want them to go early, or if they're in immediate danger. But like generally speaking, you can kind of just wait until you pull their token and then throw it down and be like, all right, now I'm going to activate the sniper, and you're totally comfortable with, whenever you pull that token.
Now that is definitely true against someone not running it, like the inverse situation where they're not running snipers. You have zero pressure because they don't have infinite range weaponry, unlike you.
Yep. And they're also sort of regardless of objective. It's very unlikely that you're going to just completely hang those points, unless you get them pasted on the first turn. But that's pretty. Once you get used to corner peeking and stuff, it's pretty hard for an opponent to do that.
I can think of a couple other situations, by the way, where you can hang them, and the number one situation I think is against melee. If melee hits your lines early, then you're hanging them, and if they reckless diversion you into Chewbacca, you can also hang them a little bit.
Right.
But those are the only cases that I can really think of hanging snipers. Very niche, right?
Yeah, I mean, generally speaking, they have infinite range, and they have Pierce and Sharpshooter. So even if you're only even if like the worst thing that you're doing is throwing down a suppression token at infinite range, like you're always getting something out of it.
Well, this begs the question, like, what's the ultimate offensive keyword package? Well, Pierce, right, is like number one, and then Sharpshooter is like number two.
Yeah,
and then they have infinite range.
Pretty much Leia's gun, infinite range. That would be the ultimate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and dice aside, Pierce and Sharpshooter, I think, to answer your question.
Pierce, Sharpshooter, and Surge crit. Like, crits with Pierce are essentially like, it's no save, essentially. It's the equivalent.
Yep. So, how do you guys use your snipers? I mean, we kind of alluded to this already, but
I try to leverage the short side of the board and set up snipers in corners and try to make angles, like crossing them together. It's always nice to have the short edge kind of dominated, whatever the short edge access I have, because it makes it so my opponent can't really hide from me. And I've even used them to back cap intercepts when there's no immediate threat. I've used them to box grab safe boxes before. Not the smartest idea, especially against opposing snipers. It all depends on where your opponent's attention is. Basically just give your opponent something else to shoot at, essentially, that is not your sniper, and then you can use your sniper to do crazy, backfield objective stuff. It's really nice too, because it's like it affects the battle, and you can accomplish objectives. You just gain tempo. That's the biggest thing I think sniper strike teams allow you to do, is just gain tempo. They're a tempo factory. Not only can you accomplish non-combat tasks with them, you can also suppress your opponent, which takes even more tempo away from them.
So what do you mean when you say tempo?
So tempo, even I'm not clear on the definition, but when I say tempo, what I mean is how far ahead am I in accomplishing what I'm trying to do. And for every activation, you can get a certain number of things accomplished before your opponent gets an opportunity to activate again and do their turn. And if you can get a lot accomplished out of one activation, you gain what I consider tempo. It just means you're just ahead in a lot of ways. And it kind of stacks up. So like, for example, if I've got a strike team plunging Evaporator, I've got a Z6 unit free to just dodge, aim, shoot, whatever. If I've got a strike team holding a box, same deal. So you're kind of trying to create situations where you're getting the absolute maximum done per activation that you can. And that's definitely like one way to, gain an edge.
So at its most basic level, it's essentially about doing more things than your opponent, whether that's,
right,
through just like having more units to do things, or preventing your opponents from doing things via suppression or eliminating units.
Right. And what'll happen is eventually it will result in situations where you're shooting more and they're not. And that will eventually cause you to win the attrition war. So that's kind of like the fundamental concept here, I think. And I mean, it's also the fact that they can affect the battle while they're in the back. That's the best part. So like if I've got a, obviously it's better to, have a naked rebel trooper squad, you know, plunging evaporator than it is to have an officer fleet doing it, or to have Luke doing it, for goodness sake. Um, you'd rather have Luke doing damage or getting a position to do damage rather than taking care of any objective. Unless he's the only one that can do it. Like, for example, Center Box, if you don't run Pathfinders, he's one of the few units that's really good at it, especially like Central Box up elevation, because he's got jump, which is very unique. There's only 2 units, now 3, that have the jump keyword, because we have Sabine in there now. So, just digging out the most you can out of each activation, essentially, while denying your opponent the ability to activate as successfully as you are. I think that's coherent.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely agree with all that. I tend to use them. Like you kind of have to decide early whether you want to actually, like if you both you and your opponent have snipers, you kind of have to decide early whether you want to try and eliminate theirs or just ignore them. And if you're doing the former, you're gonna try and set up shots, with the range tools that you have. Whether that's for a rebel player, Pathfinder, snipers, coordinated bombardment, or an Imperial player, your own snipers, maximum firepower. You kind of just have to decide, like, if you're going to play that sniper war or not. And if you're not, then you want to set up your snipers in firing lanes where they're safe from enemy unlimited range weapons, but they can still cover objectives. And then obviously you're cognizant of the firing lanes that your opponent is setting up with their snipers. So.
Oh yeah, and also maybe I should let Mike talk about this, because scouts are like the epitome of this. Please don't be afraid to use the normal weapons on these characters with strike teams, because they can be extremely threatening. And I've actually seen like 2 strike teams work in tandem to hold off like some other units that are trying to do objectives without enough support against the strike teams. So they're like, oh, it's just 2 wounds, and it's like, well, actually, I can throw 4 black dice at you, and with correct activation order, I can double tap you.
Yeah, I mean, they're overall pretty lethal once you get into range too. You just need to you don't do that unless you are shooting them first.
Yeah, you just don't do that unless you're absolutely desperate, right?
Or you're just like significantly ahead and ready to overpower them. I think overall the biggest thing with strike teams is that a couple things. A, you need to make sure that they're one of the last units you're placing in deployment, unless you've got a good reason to deploy them early. A, and B, you need to make sure that like you need a game plan for like how turns 1 through 4 are going to go. If you don't know what the game plan for the first 4 turns of the game are going to go for you and your opponent, you're going to have a really hard time, I think, getting bang for your buck on the snipers. Like, you need to be able to look across the table and say, okay, they've got 2 snipers and Leia. I've got Veers and 2 snipers myself. So what should I do, right? The correct answer 9 times out of 10 in that situation is you put Veers and both your snipers out of line of sight in a place where they'll then be able to, in one movement, step out, see an enemy sniper, and shoot it. And you'll have General Veers hand them off 2 aim tokens, 1 to each squad. And it's like they just stood there and aimed, except your opponent doesn't get to decide when to shoot you because you're behind cover. They've got to shoot one of your other units that aren't doing anything that turn.
Yeah, this basic trick, just by the way, this basic trick is something Rebel players fear. The Veer sniper farm is real.
Yeah, it's a
your win rate will go up doing this. I guarantee you.
It like a lot of times, specifically on the Imperial end of things, you're like looking down at coordinated bombardment and you're like, well, maybe I should just set the snipers up normally and just weather the coordinated bombardment fire. That's like almost strictly wrong. You're going to lose a dude in each team pretty much every time you do that. And you need to put them completely outside of line of sight, put General Veers someplace you can give them aim tokens, and just dip them out when they're ready. Once the enemy snipers are gone, or once coordinated bombardment has happened, if you just like step out, kill a sniper before their sniper got to fire, their sniper now has to move instead of aiming. You're much more advantaged in the sniper war in that regard. So I think the biggest thing with the snipers is you need to construct a plan for how you're gonna, much like Kyle said, how you're gonna deal with the opposing like unlimited range units. And if you're deciding, I think it's pretty much incorrect if there are snipers on both sides of the table to ever choose, I'm not going to play in the sniper war. I think that's a recipe for losing. I think snipers' main point of being on the table is to cut down enemy activations so that you can start leveraging your higher tier units. You both start out at 10 activations. Whoever's able to shave a sniper unit off first is now up 1. If you shave another one off, you're now up 2 activations, which then means that, oh man, my Luke can like first last you, or my IRG can first last you, or my Boba Fett can first last you. And that's kind of where the snowball occurs with the snipers. The snipers aren't doing the damage, they're just setting you up to do the damage.
Right, and so in that way, strike teams are a calculated risk, because once you've lost even one model, now you're at risk of losing an activation if they decide to peak again. That becomes a big problem for you, and so it really is kill or be killed if you have enemy snipers across the table. And so I think Mike, I agree with everything Mike said. Just be cognizant of that situation, and if you lose a model in each strike team, let's say you brought 2 and you lose a model in each strike team early, that's really dangerous for you going forward.
Yep. And heavy cover is not, at least as far as the sniper war is concerned, like heavy cover is not safety against an opposing sniper, right?
Oh, not remotely.
They reduce it by 1. If there's one like probability number to know for snipers, it's that when you've got an aim token and you're shooting into heavy cover, you still have a 60% chance to cause at least 1 wound, whether that's via rolling 2 hits or, a crit in there somewhere. That's roughly the same for both the DLT and the DH447. It's a little bit higher for the DLT because, those black dice, when you reroll them, they benefit a little bit more from an aim, but it's very close to 60% in both cases. So that means like if you're down to 1 sniper model, even if you're like up on elevation or you're behind a barricade or something, you've still got a 60% chance that guy's going to get sniped by an opposing sniper that can see him. So we talk a lot about corner peeking. I don't know if we've said, at least not on this episode, specifically what that is. It's a pretty ubiquitous tactic with sniper strike teams, but basically you want to always be hiding that second model via cohesion, the non-sniper model, behind some kind of line of sight blocking terrain. And then if your sniper model gets eliminated, since he's the unit leader in a strike team, he just essentially replaces the safely located model. And you also have no chance, since models that can't be seen by an attacking unit can't suffer wounds, there's also no chance that your sniper strike team at 2 men is going to get completely wiped by 1 shot. Whether that's coordinated bombardment or max firepower or like a lucky opposing sniper shot. So
the lucky double crit. Jay knows this pain.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's happened to me so many more times than I would like to admit. I feel like I actually get like really lucky with the sniper double crits. I'm like, yummy. But
it's delicious when it does happen.
It helps when you have like 6 aim tokens.
Yeah. You would know about that, wouldn't you? I'm a rebel. I can't fix my dice. worth anything.
So always be corner peeking is the like if there's one thing to know about snipers, that's probably the first thing.
Yeah, no doubt. If you're not doing that, you're doing it wrong. I've been teaching one of my buddies how to play, and I was like, all right, man, you need to get a sniper, a box of scouts, because he plays Empire. And the first couple of games we played, I was like, so do you want me to like teach you the hard way on how to set up your snipers, or do you want me to just like let you learn? Like, how do you want this to go? He's like, I want to learn the hard way. I was like, okay. So he just set his snipers out.
Oh, here I go.
And I was like, all right, I'm gonna maximum firepower them on turn 1. Have fun.
Oh, man.
Yeah, always be corner peeking.
Yeah.
You guys got anything else on? So do you want to talk about countering? Well, I guess we talked sort of in there about countering snipers.
Yeah.
Other unlimited range things. Use heavy cover. Stay out of line of sight. Inspire for the suppression.
Yeah, I mean, on the Empire side of the table, I would highly recommend most armies nowadays. This might change when like Death Troopers and stuff come out, but if you've got a unit of Imperial Royal Guard, make sure that all of your sniper teams are covered by the Royal Guard protection bubble. It makes the sniper war almost impossible for your opponent to win on the first couple turns. It's
and
really
that's the
difficult.
situation actually. If your opponent is doing a good job covering their sniper teams with Guardian, that's definitely a situation, like as a Rebel player, where I would probably choose to just not engage in the sniper war at all.
Yeah, I mean,
And
that's like one of those times where you're like, oh, I've got to eat through 8 health worth of Imperial Royal Guard before I even get to your snipers. Like, unless you roll a crit, obviously, but you can't really count on that. So, yeah, it's just that's kind of where the difficulty comes in. But
I think it's still fine. Like, I'll often still bombard with Leia in that case because she does surge crit, so you might end up with that surge anyway, and wounds on Royal Guard are still productive.
Oh yeah.
She obviously doesn't. She's got sharpshooter too, so the fact that she's not going to be losing hits to that corner peeking heavy cover. But like if you've got your own snipers, yeah, you're relying on crits. So,
I mean, Leia is definitely like the hard counter to snipers generally. She's just really good at it.
Yeah, and that's why. So I can't leave my snipers behind. I can't leave Leia behind either, in all my various like list.
Can't leave snipers behind. Can't leave Luke behind. Can't leave Leia behind. What else can't you leave behind?
Well, that's why I'm playing with what I'm playing.
Yeah, exactly. Same. Like, I don't feel like I have a choice right now, just because things are they're kind of locked together.
Yeah, it fits my play style too. It's like I've tried. Don't get me wrong. It's not like I just net listed this and I've only played this. Like I've tried lots of other things and I end up coming back to it. So
I'm not.
I don't think anyone needs to.
They're the 3 probably best units in the game ish. Luke and Leia, at least.
Yeah, I can't. I just can't quit the twins. Can't do it.
I wish I knew how to quit you.
I know, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So let's talk about these operatives.
Yeah, hey, we have to do Sabine and Bossk real quick. Yeah. Command cards only though, not stats.
Yeah, well, the stats have been sort of at least fuzzily known for a while. So yeah, let's talk some command cards, which are less fuzzily known because they were shown on the live stream.
Why don't we start with Bossk? That would kind of be nice.
If you haven't seen the stats on them, go to Tabletop Admiral and take a look, because I believe their cards are on there.
Yeah, they actually instead of just like reading the card, they actually hovered the card in front of the camera on the live stream. So that was helpful. Thank you, Luke and Alex, for doing that.
Yeah, thanks for showing us those.
And that was, just generally speaking, that was super fun to watch. You guys should do more. We said that already before. But yep. And they also talked about what poison does and what graffiti do. So let's dive into these real quick. When do you guys want to start with Bossk cards?
Let's just do Bossk. Why don't we just do 3, 2, 1 for each, and then we'll start with Bossk.
All right.
So Bossk's 3-pip is Lion in Wait. It says Bossk gains Sharpshooter 1 after an enemy unit activates. Bossk gains 1 aim token. I think this is the worst command card of the bunch. I think it's still decent, but I do think it's the worst.
Well, I mean, he's got 4 white dice and a red dice at range 4, and he's gonna have like 8 aim tokens by the end of the turn.
Yeah.
He's got surge to crit.
It's like one really good shot. It just, I don't know. the rest of these cards, like on both sides of the fence, either have like a really sweet effect, or they like have more than one attack involved, and or like allow your unit to take more than one attack. This is just kind of like one really beefy shot, and I'm not saying it's bad. It's just not very splashy.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, you put this next to like Imperial Discipline, like really,
Yeah.
Entire Legion, really. Heck, even the Backpack Rocket, really.
I mean, I think the Backpack Rocket is better than this card, but
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
Backpack Rocket is my most feared Boba card actually.
Oh my gosh,
personally.
yes. It's like I'm gonna wipe a unit for free at range 3. Here I go.
yeah.
Yep.
So I think that we talked about this a little bit. I think that this might be the first viable target for targeting scopes on a unit.
Yeah.
No,
I mean,
they're just too horrible.
Well, I mean, I think you want stims because of his regen, but
That's
yeah, I could
yeah.
see it. I could see it.
Yeah, okay, yeah, fine. I'll go there with you, but I just still think targeting scopes are too bad to use.
Yeah, I think you still want
Yeah.
stims.
I mean, you probably have enough aim tokens on them anyways, so you don't need targeting scopes, but it's kind of fun.
So
Yeah.
here's an interesting thought with this card, just real quick. So I gauge Sharpshooter 1, but if I have enough aim tokens to reroll into all surges and crits, does it even
Well, that's the
matter?
thing, right? It's kind of like, I mean, I don't know what the stats are. I'm sure that Kyle can probably roll that up, but I think even with Sharpshooter 1, the likelihood that you end up with 5 crits or whatever it is still pretty low. It's higher than it would be without the aim tokens, no doubt. But
Yeah, it depends on how long you wait, right? Like, I guess I should do like a table, but at some point, with 5 dice, like you're just re-rolling 1 dice
I
repeatedly.
guess he surges to crit, doesn't he?
He surges to crit, so your chance of getting 5 crits is actually higher than you would think.
I guess.
But yeah, maybe I'll run a table.
Well, yeah, 25% per die.
I guess it's
Yeah.
roughly it's very close to just a Z6 with the same number of aim tokens rolling a full hit ish, except you have a red die instead of a white and 1 less die. Anyways,
yeah, I guess kind of,
because you're looking at a 2 out of 8, right?
Yep. Yeah, with surge crit. Yeah.
All right. Well, that's an unimpressive and uninteresting command card. Well, moving on. Reptilian Rampage, Bossk's 2-pip. This one I think is actually splashy. During Bossk's activation, he can perform up to 2 attack actions, and he may suffer 1 wound to perform a free move action. So the first thing I'd like to say is, please, for the love of God, stop making us Imperials suffer wounds to do cool things. The second thing,
yeah, but he's got a lot, and he regenerates them,
no
and it's a
doubt.
free move action plus Son of Skywalker.
You're gonna turn on tenacity.
I just like, you guys get like Son of Skywalker, we get like Implacable, which is good. It's just like we have to pay extra for it. And
Yeah, but now you have Implacable with tenacity that only takes 1 activation. Like, that's kind of cool.
Yeah, I mean, we still have
2 attacks.
We still have to suffer. I don't know. In any case,
you can run Palt Bossk and triple tap.
Yeah.
It
is cool. You're not wrong. I think that the wound on him in this case is actually fairly negligible because regenerate and stuff. Yeah, I mean, you get to take 2 attack actions. This is like 2 range 4 shots with his gun seems pretty good.
Yeah, like it doesn't have to be melee.
Yeah, just attack action. So yeah, it doesn't have to be melee.
Range 4, 5 dice, pierce 1, suppressive, surge crit.
Yeah,
seems
good.
Really
good.
Gross.
Like you could easily panic a unit that's like outside of their commander's bubble.
Oh man, so like with the triple tap, are you generating 6 suppression on 1 unit potentially?
I think
that's pretty good.
My theory is that Bossk combined with Palpatine is actually a pretty decent combo, but
yeah, I think Bossk is cheap enough that that's actually possible. I mean, Pal Boba's pretty good too. I don't want to scrub it and say it's too expensive, but it's expensive.
He just doesn't have a very what do you call it? Like a very effective attack to pull the strings.
Yeah, but this is the range 4 gun that has this is where pull the string really shines, right? It was long range fire.
For sure.
Yeah.
So yeah, anything else you guys got to say about the reptilian rampage?
The wound turns on tenacity. That's the best part.
Yeah.
He doesn't have charge, does he?
He does have enrage.
He does have enrage. So okay, cool. So you could actually flip him into the enrage band and then melee with your charge. That's cool. I
sort of feel like
with 3 moves. With 3 moves, because you get the free move action.
Yeah.
That's pretty dope.
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly not bad. I just I don't think you want to put Bossk in melee. I think he kind of folds in any melee engagement that he doesn't just outright win at the beginning of.
Well, hopefully with multiple attacks, you have that idea. You have that in hand. That's the hope.
Certainly.
Yeah, I mean, with you're looking at with tenacity, you're looking at 2 red, 2 black, 1 white, pierce 1, double tapped. So
yeah, I mean it's a lightsaber, no doubt. I'm not going to argue with that. I just if he doesn't kill or effectively mitigate the damage swinging back at him in melee.
He needs to kill or severely maim whatever he touches.
The other thing is that he's got to get to melee before.
Yeah, and it's definitely like if you happen to find yourself there, you can tread something, but it's not like you should be charging up to the table with him just to activate that.
Right, it's totally situational, but it's a thing you can do.
Yeah,
it's a move.
So with that being said, his 1 pip actually might be a reason to charge him up the table.
Yeah, speaking of which.
So, Merciless Munitions. During the round this card is played, Bossk gets to arm a Dioxis charge. After he performs that action, he gets to perform a speed 1 move. And then until the end of the game, he gains Detonate Dioxis charge. And it says, after a trooper unit defends against an attack made by your Dioxis charge, it gains 1 poison token. Do not discard this card from play. So the Dioxis charge is a range 1 red-black blast surge to crit. So it's already averaging a hit and a half, ignoring cover.
Against everything within range 1 of wherever you drop it. Yeah. It's a mine from the minefield condition card, essentially.
Yeah, or is a sab mine, right?
Right, yeah.
Not that we see those on the table a lot, but
not often.
No, but I mean, you could see some meta sab lists with triple sabs, Bossk or something. So you get a poison token if you get hit by this attack.
Yeah, so it's 1 damage basically. 1 unsavable damage.
Wow.
So really, what this card says is 2.5 damage, pierce 1, sort of, kind of. It's not exactly that, but
unlike every unit in range 1.
Yeah, because the poison token's delayed, but still, and you're talking about it's not really pierce, right? So you can do that one free wound also to pierce immune units.
Yeah,
yeah, it's even better than pierce.
It's significantly better than that. I'm just using that as an example.
Yeah, it's definitely a reason to not bunch up your guys.
Yeah, if you get 5 units hit with this, I think you are a significant favorite to lose the game.
I mean, if you get 2 or 3 units hit by that, that's going to be pretty painful.
That's true too.
Depending on what they are.
Yeah, that's definitely a win condition is a good Dioxis charge.
So it's notable that I'm pretty sure that the reason that this speed 1 move is in here is so that you can essentially toss this charge as far from you as possible and then move out of its range and then detonate it. Would be my guess.
Mine too.
It seems
just to run from his own radius. Yeah. Because the current arm rules say you're hit by your own mine.
Exactly. Just due to how that works. So I don't know.
Although interesting question. I guess I don't know if we know this from the stream, but if poison token is like stims, is it at the end of your activation or at the end of your next activation?
I don't know.
I guess we don't know. But yeah, like if you hit yourself with this, it's possible that you just regen more wounds in the meantime before you actually like suffer that poison wound.
Yeah, buddy. So it's a good card. I think his 1 and 2 pips are both pretty decent. His 3 pip, I'll probably be playing Coordinated Fire.
Yeah,
which does
probably.
basically the same thing.
If Bossk is at the end of your Coordinated Fire chain, you're just dumping 6 AM tokens on him anyways. So
yeah, you got a good point there. Like, no, that's how that fits, right? With Palp Bossk, like you take Bossk 2, you take Bossk 2/1, you take all the Palp's cards, you take Coordinated Fire, like easy command.
Yeah, I mean, essentially Line of Weight and Coordinated Fire, like they're pretty much the same card. Because he's got to, if Line of Weight is 6 aim tokens, he's got to go last anyway. So, I don't know. So,
yep. All right, we want to real quick hit Sabine's cards.
Yeah, let's do Sabine. So Sabine's 3 pip is called Legacy of Mandalore. Sabine Wren and 2 troopers are the target. The text says Sabine Wren gains Inspire 1. When Sabine Wren issues an order to a commander, operative, or special forces unit, she gains either 1 aim token or 1 dodge token. So basically Sabine gets a ton of tokens for free and gains Inspire 1. As long as she's issuing orders to nearby commanders, operatives, or special forces.
And it's nice because unlike previous operative, like unlike Boba Fett, she's actually able to give orders to other units with this card.
I think that's super
even though she's
powerful.
an operative. Yeah, I agree.
Definitely.
And she has a nimble, so she's getting a lot of mileage out of that dodge.
Sure. I think that this is actually, I don't know if it's a deal breaker over Pathfinders or Wookiees, but I think that if you don't have Wookiees in your army right now, it's actually kind of difficult to hit 3 units with this that all trigger the condition.
Yeah, because she's not going to be close to your sniper teams. She's unlikely to be close to the Pathfinders. And you're probably not running her with 2 commanders?
That would be my bet, though. I've meted a couple of lists out.
Yeah, that would be tough to get the full value. Now that you mention it,
I don't think it's the deal breaker over like Wookiees or Pathfinders because it's really the difference between like an extra aim token, right?
Yeah, and you can't cheat with uplink because she's issuing the order, not the unit that uplinked.
I think most of the time you're taking 2 aims and a dodge token, unless she's like under some real threat and you need a couple extra dodge tokens. But I think that's probably the most likely mode that we'll be seeing with this.
So it's like a single turn quick thinking with 3 orders attached, which is pretty good on a Mandalorian.
Yeah, and she gets Inspire,
Yeah, it's a nice extra point of Inspire there. Or if you're running her without Leia, then yeah. I mean, for cost, you could totally run Luke, Leia, and a really cheap Sabine, probably.
That may or may not be the list.
I'm envisioning it.
Invader League. We'll see.
That may or may not be the list. Yeah. She was. All right. So I mean, that's pretty self-explanatory. It's got a ton of uses and a ton of benefits. So not much more to say there. Definitely better than Save Our Skins. That wasn't hard though. To be better than Save Our Skins.
That's not a very high bar.
Yeah, it's not a very high bar. Better than Covering Fire? I don't know. Probably.
I think so.
Yeah, if you're running her, yeah.
It's much more reliable and it gives you way more activation control.
Oh, definitely. Yes.
If this card said Sabine Wren and Luke Skywalker on it, it would be better than Covering Fire.
That's true. Yeah, that's true. Oh, you know where she gets the full value out of this is if she's running with Han Chewie.
Yes.
Or Leia Chewie.
I think
she definitely gains full value there.
Those lists are probably the ones that are the easiest ones to like full trigger this.
Leia Chewie Sabine seems like an interesting idea. Anyway, we can speculate later. So 2 pip, Symbol of Rebellion. Targeting only Sabine Wren. When Sabine Wren activates, she recovers. Yay for a free recover. During Sabine Wren's activation, you may place 1 graffiti token, that's new, at range 1 and in line of sight of her, touching a piece of non-area terrain. So she spray paints a symbol somewhere, and that graffiti makes something happen.
I think basically it makes it you roll an extra dice when your dudes are rallying close enough to it, and your opponent rolls one less dice when their dudes are rallying close enough to it.
Yeah,
down to a minimum of one. You can't, just automatically fail a rally if you only have one suppression. But
right, but it makes it tougher for your opponents to rally. It makes it easier for you to rally, essentially within a certain distance.
Yeah, seems good.
Seems really good.
It's one of those effects that's like subtle, but I think very good.
I just love it for the free recover. Like, recover's great. And I mean, she has a personal shield that she has, and I think that's perfect for personal shield. A lot of folks are saying it's too expensive, but I disagree. I think personal shield is really nice, especially if you late game when you really need that block result. You can just personal shield your way out of trouble.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. It might be actually over the top. I think like Sabine with a dodge token is already
Dodge token and personal shield and impervious.
Yeah,
seems really good.
I don't know. Like, I'm not sure if the shield if the shield is necessary, it will be really good, but I don't know if it's necessary.
Yeah, I mean, it's for that one attack that you think you're gonna die, possibly.
Yeah,
that it would really help you, and I think that's a nice like get out of jail free card that's not a stems.
It seems to be in the useful but not required category.
Yeah, for sure. Like it's if you have the space, take it. Otherwise, you might leave it at home for other fun things. All right, so that's Symbol of Rebellion, and then last but not least, Explosions, which is a very interesting name for a command card. It's a 1-pip Sabine Wren, kind of like Bossk's 1-pip. During the round this card is played, Sabine Wren gains Arm 2 Thermal Charge. After she performs this action, she may perform a Speed 1 move. Until the end of the game, Sabine Wren gains Detonate 2 Thermal Charge. Do not discard this card from play. Range 1 area weapon, red-white, surge crit with blast, a weaker proton charge. Yep. But there are 2 of them.
There are 2 of them, and you can throw them down and then do a Speed 1 move away. So, and then
you can detonate both at once.
Yeah,
yeah, exactly. So it's basically suppressive through the back door because it's 2 separate attacks.
Yeah, I mean, assuming that you drop them right on top of each other.
Right.
Which I think is like probably likely what you're doing most of the time. I'm sure that there are situations where you want to spread it out for whatever reason.
Yeah, I mean, if you can't, like, if you've got a bunch of units that you want to hit and you can't catch all of them with just the one charge, you probably got some overlap, right? Like a Venn diagram style placement.
I think it's notable for this and Bossk that they kind of have to be pretty close to the opponent already to use these generally.
Yeah, and like I think when you're playing against them, you just need to spread out because they definitely have these 1-pips that really damage massed troopers.
Yeah, I think Explosions is going to be. I think we're going to see a lot more explosions than the whatever the name of Bossk's is, Merciless Munitions, just because I think Sabine, specifically with the Darksaber, kind of wants to be up in your opponent's grill as it is. And I think this just kind of makes it even more murder.
Yeah, she's going to, unlike Bossk, she's very likely to be in there anyway. So,
and
definitely.
She's going to be in there, and if you don't dedicate units to deal with her, she's just going to murder whatever she's dealing with. So it's kind of there are going to be hard choices you're going to have to make.
Yeah, I mean, this was on the live stream, right? Like, Luke threw this down and just blew everything up.
I would like to say, and Luke, you were losing that game very handily to that tank, and then explosions happened, and all of a sudden you weren't. So,
it's a lot of dice rolling.
It's almost like Rebels put their lists on the back of one extremely strong hero.
Well, no, that's no longer going to be true. They're going to put their lists on the backs of 2 extremely strong heroes.
There you go. Exactly. Okay.
So,
all right.
I would like to just wish list that I wish these cards just said detonate charge on them.
Can you imagine if she could just blow Like if you ran her with Sabs, she just blows up a bunch of charges at once.
I
my
just
goodness.
that would be wicked cool. B, we might actually see some more we might see like Sabs go a little bit more mainstream at that point. I don't think it's enough to make them like wicked good, but it gives you like like you can just toss down bombs and not like worry about if your strike team gets killed, right? Because all of a sudden Sabine's gonna stay in play for a little while, you know.
Yeah. It's a little extra insurance.
Yeah, I mean, like clearly that's not how it works, but
yeah,
wish list if people are listening.
All right, you guys got anything else? This was a packed episode.
Yeah, we've I think we've set our piece for this week. We're gonna have more to come next week before we head to Chicago.
Yeah, maybe I'll have decided Wookiees or Pathfinders by then.
Yeah,
I've got
maybe we'll have an article.
Yeah,
that
that's
has
true.
something to do with Imperials.
Don't get me started. We're like an hour and a half into this episode. It doesn't need to go another half hour.
I bet they drop like the Imperial Specialist article on Thursday.
You know they will, right?
We know this is the article that you've been waiting for.
The Emperor is displeased with your progress.
All right, so we are the Notorious Scoundrels. I'm Kyle.
I'm Mike.
I'm David.
And we will see you next week. Happy Legion.
Join us next time for another edition of the Notorious Scoundrels podcast. This has been a Fifth Trooper production.